Am I the a-hole for calling out my colleagues' plagiarism during our company's annual gala? I've been at Meridian Innovations, a mid-sized tech startup specializing in AI-driven supply chain solutions, for 8 years. I started as a junior data analyst and worked my way up to senior product manager, leading a small team and overseeing some of our most successful feature launches. I, 35F, pride myself on my work ethic, integrity, and loyalty to the company. I've never once missed a deadline, and I've always tried to help my teammates learn and succeed. This fall, our CEO announced that our annual Innovation Gala, think glitzy awards ceremony, champagne, speeches, the whole 9 yards, would be a tribute not only to the year's successes, but also to an internal hackathon whose winners would receive promotions and cash bonuses. As senior PM, I was tapped to mentor 2 junior engineers, Layla, 27F, and Connor, 29M, on the hackathon project they chose, an automated route optimization tool that could cut transportation costs by 15%. For 3 months, Layla, Connor, and I met every Tuesday and Thursday after our regular workday. We brainstormed, prototyped, ran simulations, and prepared a polished presentation. I made sure to teach, not just do, so that Layla and Connor could speak confidently about every line of code. We stayed late, ordered pizza, and bonded over coffee runs. I believed in them, and they trusted me completely. Meanwhile, Jake, 33M from marketing, whom I'd mentored informally on cross-department communication, entered the hackathon with an entirely different concept. He and his appointed teammate, Maya, 30F, proposed a smart contract tool for automating vendor agreements. Great idea on paper, but Jake had zero coding experience. Maya did most of the heavy lifting. He handled the pitch deck, styled the slides, and sweet-talked the sales team into feeding him data. Fast forward 3 weeks, our project and Jake's were selected as finalists. We each presented to the executive panel. Me and Layla Connor went first, then Jake and Maya. The execs peppered us with technical questions, all of which we answered with ease, because we'd built the thing ourselves. When Jake's turn came, he stumbled through the demo, froze when asked about the underlying APIs, and flubbed one of the core assumptions. Maya bailed him out mid-sentence a couple of times. I genuinely thought the execs would choose us, but when the results were announced the following Monday, they picked Jake and Maya. They praised the slick packaging, market-ready design, and novel vendor contract use case. They unveiled the prize: 2 promotions to Associate Product Lead for Jake and Maya, plus $20,000 each. Layla and Connor and I were understandably crushed, but supportive. We congratulated the winners, congratulated each other on what we'd built, and agreed to keep refining our route optimizer as an internal feature. Morale was bruised but intact. I even gave Jake a handwritten congrats note, telling him I was proud of his team's strong vision. The next morning, however, I got a panicked message from Connor. Did you see Jake's repo? He'd Googled the open-source library we'd used for our pathfinding algorithm, and discovered that Jake had forked my private GitHub repo from our hackathon workspace, not publicly accessible, renamed several files, swapped out some comments, and pushed it to his personal GitHub under the Smart Contract project. In other words, the entire algorithm Layla, Connor, and I had designed, complete with our variable names, debug logs, and commit history, was presented by Jake as, if he had written it, I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I confronted Jake over Slack. Hey, I noticed you're using our route optimizer code in your hackathon repo. That's our IP. Did you mean to do that? He replied, Oops, sorry. I merged it in by accident when I was grabbing a test data set. Didn't realize it was your code. His teammate Maya chimed in, Yeah, sorry, we thought it was a dependency. I tried to let it slide. I said, Please remove it and replace it with your own code. If you need help building your own Pathfinder, let me know. But presenting ours isn't right. He promised to fix it. 2 days later, I checked his repo again. It was still there. I pinged him again, with a screenshot. He took it down that afternoon, thanking me for pointing it out. 4 days before the gala, the execs published an internal newsletter previewing the 2 hackathon winners and teasing their upcoming product features at the gala. Under Jake and Maya's project, The newsletter described a proprietary route optimization submodule that sounded identical to ours. I forwarded the newsletter to Jake, saying, "Please double-check that product team." He wrote back, "It's fine, I'm presenting on vendor contracts, not routing. The newsletter phrasing is generic. Don't worry. By gala night, last Saturday, my stomach was in knots. The ballroom at the Hyatt was glittering. The CEO delivered his opening remarks about ethics in innovation. Then came the big awards segment. First, they unveiled Maya as Associate Product Lead, Emerging Tech. She gave a humble speech. Next, they called Jake's name, Associate Product Lead, Vendor Solutions. As he walked on stage, he gave me a smug nod. The camera panned back to the big screen behind him, which displayed his slide deck, slides that, slide by slide, used our color scheme. The same chart design, the same screenshots, but cropped differently, and even the same example scenarios from our demo. The room burst into polite applause. Jake fished his phone from his pocket, tapped it, and the deck advanced. He explained the workflow, my workflow. I could feel my face go hot. My pulse thundered. I looked at Maya. She was beaming. The CEO and CMO and CTO in the front row were nodding appreciatively. I whispered to Layla, "He's using our route optimizer. That's not your code." She looked shocked. Then a light bulb went off. The CEO said, "Let's see it in action." Jake clicked. Nothing. The demo slide flicked to error messages. Missing modules, file not found, unhandled exception. He panicked, jiggled his laptop, but couldn't get it to run. Technically, that was our code on his machine, and he hadn't reinstalled dependencies correctly when he removed our repo. Silence filled the ballroom. Someone coughed. For a moment I considered pushing past the stage curtain, grabbing the mic and exposing him. I thought about all the times I'd tried to handle it quietly, the promises he'd broken, the fact that the CEO had just preached ethics 5 minutes ago. So I stood up. I strode up the aisle in my black sheath dress, got within 3 feet of the stage and told him, loudly enough that the whole ballroom heard, "Jake, that's not your code, that's ours, from the hackathon workspace." The projector flickered backward through the code screenshot I'd sent him. "You removed our files but never replaced them, and you forgot dependencies, so it failed here. Please be honest about where this came from." Jake turned bright red. The audience gasped. The CEO leaned forward. The CMO whispered to the CTO. My voice trembled as I continued. "If you want credit for your own work, present your own work. Otherwise, please step down." I handed the mic to the host and returned to my seat, my legs shaking. For a moment, the room was eerily silent. Then the CMO stood up, tapped the microphone. "Thank you, Kate. Let's take a 5-minute break." The band struck up awkward elevator music. Conversations erupted in clusters. I slammed my purse onto my lap, heart racing. An hour later, the gala resumed. The CEO announced, "After reviewing the hackathon code, we've determined that inadequate attribution was given for one of the entries. We're revoking Jake's award effective immediately. The team responsible for the route optimizer, Kate, Layla, and Connor, will share the Associate Product Lead title, and both teams will receive $10,000 each." There was polite applause, a few cheers from my department, and then they moved on to other awards. I could see Jake's shoulders slump as he sank into his seat. Maya glared at me, but didn't say anything. Since then, the reactions have been mixed. Layla and Connor have been messaging me non-stop, thanking me for speaking up, calling me their hero. My manager privately told me I showed incredible integrity, but also that public theatrics at a gala were unorthodox and next time I should escalate through proper channels. HR called me in and asked for a written statement and all Slack logs. They're investigating possible professional misconduct, since pulling the microphone from Jake in front of all employees could be deemed unprofessional. Jake hasn't spoken to me. He sent a passive-aggressive Slack message yesterday. "Congrats on your big night. Hope you enjoy your new title." Some co-workers have privately told him they felt sorry for him, that I should have waited until Monday morning, and that I ruined his reputation in the company. I'm proud that the company will now recognize my actual work, that I protected my mentees, and that we reclaimed our intellectual property. But I can't shake the worry that I was too harsh, that I stole the spotlight from the gala itself, that I possibly damaged team cohesion, and that I might have burned bridges with senior leadership who prefer formal processes. So, Reddit, AITA for publicly confronting Jake about his plagiarism at the gala. AITA for hijacking an awards ceremony rather than handling it privately. AITA for potentially undermining company morale in order to defend my team's work. I really want to know if I crossed a line, if there was a better way to handle it, or if I did exactly what had to be done. Thank you for reading. Am I the a-hole for publicly outing my mother's secret adoption at my sister's college graduation? I, 27F, come from a family that's generally close-knit. Weekend barbecues, holidays at grandma's farmhouse, inside jokes about Mom's legendary chili. But last weekend at my younger sister Eva's 24F college graduation ceremony, I dropped a bombshell that shattered everything. Now half my relatives say I'm a hero for speaking up. The other half think I humiliated my mom and stole my sister's spotlight. I genuinely don't know who's in the right, so Reddit, AITA? A bit of backstory: our mother, Linda, 54F, has always seemed the picture of stability. Worked 2 jobs to keep us in private school, coached our swim team, hosted church potlucks. What most of the family didn't know until this weekend is that when I was 16 and Eva was 13, Mom secretly adopted a baby boy from her best friend, Carla, who died of a sudden aneurysm. The friend's husband had also died unexpectedly, and Carla left no will. Out of grief and loyalty, Mom brought the baby, named him Daniel, home, completed the adoption paperwork under the radar, and raised him as our kid brother. Dad, 60 never knew. Mom forged his signature on the papers, and Dad has always believed Daniel is our half-brother from Mom's first marriage before she met Dad. In reality, Daniel was born in 2005, years after Mom and Dad wed. Dad's family has no idea. Eva and I were sworn to secrecy. Mom told us that Dad couldn't handle any more surprises, and Carla's extended family was too overwhelmed to take in a newborn. We loved Daniel, of course. He grew up as our baby brother, adored and doted on. But he never had a birth certificate showing Dad's paternity, or Mom's maiden name, only the sealed adoption record. Eva and I have lived with that burden for over a decade. The lead up to graduation. Eva graduated this past Saturday with honors in environmental engineering. She's been the golden child, class president, scholarship winner, already accepted to a master's program in Europe. Mom was over the moon. She booked a block of hotel rooms for our extended family, rented a minibus for out-of-town parents, and coordinated a celebratory brunch. I flew home from out of state the night before. Over coffee, Mom was her usual exuberant self. Isn't Eva going to make such a splash? And I've arranged for a very special guest to help us celebrate at brunch tomorrow. She wouldn't say more, so I assumed she was inviting one of Eva's professors or an old college roommate. That afternoon I got a message from Aunt Marie. So excited to meet Eva's new little brother. Mom says she adopted again. I'm curious about the story. My stomach sank. Aunt Marie hasn't met Daniel in years because the family assumed the adoption was moot. I texted Mom. Hey, did you tell everyone about Daniel's adoption? Mom, that's private. She replied, it's fine. He's part of the family now. Let's surprise Eva. I tried to call Dad, but he was traveling for work and didn't pick up. Graduation day, the ceremony. The ceremony was on campus at 10 a.m. Eva processed in cap and gown, hood walking down the aisle with her mentor, and we cheered loudly. She gave a moving speech about sustainability and community service. I cried, proud big sister tears. What neither Dad nor the wider family knew was that Mom had invited Daniel to stand on stage during the student procession right behind Eva so she could walk her into the next chapter as a symbolic gesture. Daniel had been practicing his walk in rehearsals all week, and Mom was convinced it was the sweetest surprise. So when the faculty called out, Eva Thompson, Mom winked at me. Then I saw Daniel in his tiny cap and gown, stepping out between grads, looking both proud and terrified. The crowd applauded, thinking he was one of the graduating elementary students crossing over to the next school, until the announcer realized the mistake. Ah, that's Daniel Thompson. Just a special honor to have him join his sister. My heart lurched. Dad was oblivious, beaming beside Mom. The brunch revelation. After the ceremony, we piled into the hotel ballroom for a catered brunch. Tables were named after campus landmarks. Ours was Engineering Quad. Mum had prepared a slideshow of Eva's childhood, ending with a photo of all 4 kids, including Daniel. She handed out napkins printed with, "Congrats, Eva, love, Mom and Dad," as Aunt Marie and Uncle Rob started asking softly, "So when did Daniel join the family?" Mum launched into a story about how she and Dad welcomed a new addition after I graduated high school, but insisted Dad was on board. Eva looked confused. Dad leaned forward, puzzled. I glanced at the sealed envelope on the table that read, "From Court Records, Confidential Adoption Papers." That was Mom's backup in case Dad questioned further. I felt panic and rage swirling. Mom had lied for 11 years, and Dad still believed Daniel was their biological child from a teen marriage no one else knew about. Cousins were asking, "Is Dad really his father?" My aunt was tearing up, saying, "I just assumed." Daniel looked around wide-eyed. I couldn't stay silent. I stood up, glass in hand, voice trembling. "Family, I'm sorry to spring this now, but this envelope is the actual adoption paperwork. Mom signed Dad's name without his knowledge. Daniel is not Dad's biological son. He's the baby Mom secretly adopted after her friend Carla died. I know this is big news, but I refuse to keep lying to my own father for the rest of his life." Silence fell. Dad's face went pale. Mom's mouth froze open. Daniel started to cry softly. Ava's face crumpled. I realized I'd eclipsed Ava's graduation brunch, turning it into a chaotic paternity revelation. Immediate fallout. Dad stood up, furious, waving the envelope. "Linda, how could you? All these years I thought he was my son." He paced the room. "I raised him as my own. Do you realize what this means?" Mum sobbed. "It was for the best. He would have ended up in foster care, and Carla's family wanted no part of a baby boy. I just didn't have the heart to tell him." Daniel clung to Eva's leg, crying, "I'm still your brother, right?" Eva shouted, "Mom, you had no right to decide everyone else's lives like that." Aunt Marie looked stunned. "You tricked an entire family." Cousins whispered among themselves, some backing me, some glaring at me. "I can't believe she exposed that at her sister's party. Why didn't she wait until after Dad was sober?" Mom glared at me through tears. "You ruined everything. You couldn't just let me have this one happy day?" I had no answer. Where we stand now, 2 days later. Dad has moved into a hotel. He says he needs time to process. He hasn't spoken to Mom or me. Mom has hidden herself away and texted me once. "I never meant to hurt anyone, please forgive me." I haven't replied. Eva cut her celebration trip short and is flying back home. She texted, "I wanted to graduate without family drama. Why did you do that?" Daniel is staying with our aunt for the time being. He's confused and misses Dad. He texted me, "Are you mad at me too?" Other relatives are split. Half applaud me for telling the truth, half condemn me for publicly shaming Mom and wrecking Eva's big day. I've tried apologizing to Eva, saying I'm sorry I stole her moment, but it felt wrong to let Mom lie to Dad forever. I've texted Dad asking if he's all right, but no answer. I've sent Mom resources for family counseling, but the house is empty, the balloon's still up, and the echo of Dad's anger rings in my ears. So, Reddit, Aita for exposing my mother's secret adoption of Daniel at my sister's graduation brunch. Ate for prioritizing my father's right to know the truth over my sister's big day. Ate for publicly humiliating my mom and Daniel rather than waiting to discuss it privately. I believed the secret was too big to keep and would eventually tear us apart if left unspoken. But I never imagined I'd ruin Eva's special achievement or fracture our family so deeply. I'm hoping for honest perspectives. Did I do the right thing, or was this public call-out unforgivable? Thanks for reading. Am I the a-hole for exposing my fiancé's cheating at our engagement party? Hey Reddit, I, 29F, really need your perspective on what happened this weekend. I feel like I might have overstepped, but at the same time, I can't just ignore what he did. I'll try to keep this as concise as possible, but it's long and messy. Background: I've been with my fiancé, Matt, 31M, for nearly 4 years. We met in graduate school, bonded over terrible ramen and obscure 90s indie bands, and quickly became inseparable. About 6 months ago, he proposed on a freezing December night under twinkling cafe lights. It was perfect, and of course I said yes. We set our engagement party for this past Saturday, early May, so that both our families scattered across 3 states could gather before the summer wedding planning frenzy. Our families get along really well for the most part. My parents, both warm and chatty, flew in from Ohio. His parents, more reserved but supportive, drove up from Virginia. We set up the party in my backyard, twinkly lights, a rented tent, past hors d'oeuvres, open bar, the whole 9 yards. I was beyond excited to introduce everyone and finally soak in being officially engaged. The red flags. A few weeks ago, I noticed some weird behavior from Matt. Secret phone conversations. He'd vanish at odd times, locking himself in the guesty bathroom or stepping outside for important calls. He refused to let me see his phone screen, even though we normally share passwords and social media accounts. Scented lies. He'd come home smelling faintly of a perfume I didn't recognize. When I asked, he said a friend at work gave him a sample of a new cologne, but he couldn't name the friend or the brand. Guarded calendar. I texted to check plans for Mother's Day, but his responses were vague. "I'll fill you in later," and he blocked free Saturday afternoon in his calendar without telling me why. I voiced concerns gently. "Babe, is everything okay at work? Hey, did you run into someone after lunch? Is there something you want to talk about?" He always waved it off with a quick kiss, and "I've just got a lot on my plate, but nothing to worry about." Day of the party, the engagement party, was set to start at 4 p.m. on Saturday. I woke up early and helped my mom fluff pillows and set out charcuterie boards. At noon, the florist delivered peonies in blush and ivory, and I arranged them around the cake table. By 2 p.m. the caterer arrived, and I watched them load plates of mini quiches and sliders onto the buffet. At 3 p.m., I saw Matt slip out of the house while I was arranging flower vases. I assumed he was greeting guests or setting up a speaker system. I never expected what came next. By 3:30 p.m., about a dozen of our closest friends had arrived. We were chatting by the fire pit when suddenly our friend Joey, 30M, stumbled in through the gate. He was breathless and disheveled, like he'd been running. "Hey, sorry I'm late," he panted. "Fuck, I didn't know where you guys were. He stopped, looked over my shoulder and paled. I turned, saw Matt standing in the driveway with a woman I'd never met. Long dark hair, red dress, stilettos half buried in gravel. They were kissing, right there. Not a quick peck, but a full-on makeout. Matt's hand was tangled in her hair. The car door was open behind them. My heart froze. For a split second, I thought it was a hallucination. I felt 2 options. 1, run and confront them privately later, or 2, expose them immediately. My mind raced, and I chose the second. The confrontation, I grabbed Joey's arm and tugged him back toward the tent. "Do you see what I see?" I hissed, tears welling. He nodded. "Fuck, yeah." I marched over to Matt and the woman. The guests noticed us approaching and quieted. Forks clattered on plates. I took a deep breath, forcing my voice to stay steady. Can someone remind me who this is?" I said, loud enough for all to hear. "This must be my cousin." The woman broke apart from Matt and looked mortified, but he just smirked. "Who are you?" he said, stepping toward me like I was the problem. My voice cracked. "I'm your fiancé, Lauren, who you just forgot for 6 months." Gasps echoed. My mom clutched the arm of her chair. His mother's jaw dropped. The woman, still clutching. His lapel looked like a deer in headlights. "You cheated on me," I said, tears streaming down my face now. "You've been sneaking around with her while telling me it's just work stress. You lied to me every day." Guests murmured. People turned toward the driveway. The woman shoved Matt away and ran past me, tripping in the gravel. She didn't stop. Matt tried to grab my arm. "Lauren, this is humiliating. Let's talk inside." I yanked away. "Talk? You cheated at my engagement party. In front of everyone, there's nothing left to talk about," he sputtered. "She's just a client, believe me." "A client?" I repeated incredulously. You make her out to be a client, but you didn't hesitate to grope her in the driveway in front of all our friends. Do you think that's professional behavior? By this point, my dad had come outside and was standing beside me. He put a hand on my shoulder. With all due respect, sir, Matt said to my dad, this is a private matter. My dad's voice was icy. She's my daughter. If you had 1 ounce of respect or decency, you wouldn't do this at an engagement party. Matt looked around. Our friends were silent, mouths agape. He pulled out his phone. I can explain, Lauren. Just please don't. Make a scene. Too late, I said, turning to the crowd. You all see it. You see who he really is. I turned back to Matt. You're a liar, a cheat, and I will never marry you. Then I stormed inside, leaving him and the crowd frozen in place. Aftermath inside, my mum hugged me while my dad escorted guests out. The caterer quietly began packing up the buffet. By the time I called my best friend Nina and tearfully explained what happened, I'd calmed enough to feel the weight of the scene. Nina insisted we call the wedding planner and guests to cancel the rest of the party, and the entire wedding if that's what I wanted. I agreed. I sat at the kitchen counter, dialing vendors one by one. Hi, this is Lauren Thompson. Yes, the engagement party. We're going to cancel the rest of today's events. Thank you for understanding. Meanwhile, Matt's phone was blowing up. Texts from his mother, his co-workers, even the mystery woman pleading. I threw my phone down. Current situation. It's now Monday. I haven't spoken to Matt since Saturday afternoon. He left my engagement. Ring in my car, which I discovered this morning. I've received 3 texts from him. Matt, we need to talk. Can we meet? Matt, I never meant for you to see it like that. Matt, please, Lauren, I love you. I haven't replied. My parents have been fully supportive. My dad wants me to file for the annulment paperwork. My mom has stocked the freezer with lasagna and ice cream pints and keeps calling to check. On me. Nina has opened her home for me. My friends have rallied around, sending notes about loyalty and trust. But there's one voice I'm missing. I keep waking up wondering if I was too harsh, if I should have handled it privately, if I should have asked for proof before making a spectacle, if maybe he had a plausible explanation and I just blew up without listening. My aunt texted me, "You could have waited until after the party to talk to him. You robbed him of his chance to explain. What if she really was just a client? I know cheating is never justifiable, but I can't shake the doubt that maybe I am the a-hole for exposing him during what was supposed to be our joyful celebration, ruining a party that hundreds of dollars and countless hours went into. Maybe I should have waited. Maybe I should have asked questions first." So Reddit, AET for outing my fiancé's affair in front of all our friends and family at our engagement party. AET for refusing to talk privately and insisting on a public confrontation. AET for cancelling the rest of the party and effectively announcing our breakup that way. I know the easy line is, "Of course you're NTA, you caught him cheating." But I'm struggling with whether how I handled it was justified. Am I the asshole here? Thank you for reading. I really appreciate your honest take. Am I the a-hole for calling out my best friend's fiancée at her bridal shower? Hi everyone, I, 28F, am in desperate need of outside perspective because I've been torn apart by family and friends over something that happened last weekend, and I honestly can't tell if I'm the villain here. Background and key players. Me. I work as a non-profit fundraiser. I tend to go out of my way for my friends and pride myself on being reliable, helpful, and fiercely protective of my nearest and dearest. Lena, 28F. My best friend since college. We met freshman year through a mutual roommate, clicked instantly, and have been inseparable ever since. She's smart, generous, and kind, but lately she's been different. Mark, 30 Mace Emma, Lena's fiancé. They met 2 years ago through a dating app. At first he seemed charming, funny, attentive, supportive of Lena's career, and always saying the right thing. They got engaged 6 months ago. Tasha, 27F, our mutual friend, also a bridesmaid. She's organized the bridal shower. Bridal shower attendees, about 12 women, family members, college friends, and a few co-workers. Over the past few months, I've noticed subtle red flags in Lena and Mark's relationship. dismissive comments. Mark repeatedly makes small digs at Lena when he thinks I'm out of earshot. For example, he told me once, "Your friend's ambition is cute until it starts making everyone else look boring." Power plays. He insists on managing every aspect of Lena's life, her work schedule, her friend group, even the playlists she makes for her fundraiser events. When I teasingly suggested she pick the music for her own surprise birthday party, Mark rolled his eyes and said, "I don't want her making poor choices. Say I'll handle it." Controlling invitations. He told Lena who she could invite to the engagement party. She originally wanted our mutual friend group of 10, but Mark trimmed it to only 7 people he knew well. Lena brushed all of this off, saying Mark was just protective and had her best interests at heart. I voiced my concerns once in private, not to attack him, but to suggest that some of his comments felt condescending. She laughed it off and gave me the look, half annoyed, half sympathetic. She told me not to misread his joking tone. Fast forward to last weekend, the bridal shower. Tasha had decorated the backyard, set up a champagne bar, and organized games. Everything looked beautiful. As the maid of honor myself, I was in charge of toasts. The moment of truth. After cake and games, I stood up to give a toast to Lena. I spoke from the heart, about how proud I was of her strength, her kindness, and how she always challenged me to be better. I raised my glass. Everyone clinked, except Mark. He was scrolling through photos on his phone, barely looking up. I gave a playful elbow to Lena and mouthed, "Isn't he going to join us?" She shrugged. A few minutes later, Tasha called for a game. "Let's do Who Knows the Bride Best?" People groaned in delight. One by one, we answered questions about Lena's favorite things. Then it was Mark's turn. The final question, she said, would be worth double points. "What is the single most important quality you admire in Lena?" Mark stood, cleared his throat theatrically, and said, "Well, it's her obedience. Like she always does what I tell her. That's the thing I admire most." He smirked. Everyone froze. I felt my face flush. Lena's smile tightened into a grim line. The whispers started. Did he just say obedience? What does that even mean? Before Mark could go on, I stood up. My heart was pounding so loud, I could hear it. I looked him dead in the eyes and said, "If you admire obedience, maybe you got the wrong girl." Then I turned to Lena and said, "You're a force of nature, Lena. Not some 1950s trophy wife. Don't let anyone suggest otherwise." I sat down, shaking. Reaction and fallout. Lena burst into tears, angry tears and sad tears all at once. She ran inside, slammed the door, and didn't come back out for the rest of the party. Mark looked stunned, then his face darkened. He muttered, "Well, that was rude," but said nothing more in front of the group. Tasha hurried to console Lena's family, apologizing for the drama. The other guests fell silent. A few congratulated me on standing up for truth, but most shifted uncomfortably. I thought we'd go inside and calm things down, but Lena refused to speak to me afterward. She left early with Mark, without saying goodbye to anyone, not even her mum. I stayed behind to help Tasha tidy up. It was hours before I went home. Since then, Lena hasn't returned my calls or texts. She blocked me on Instagram after I sent a long apology message saying I lost my temper and should have handled it differently. Other friends are divided. Half think I was justified because Mark's comment was sexist and cruel. Half think I embarrassed Lena and ruined her moment. Lena's mother called me yesterday, sobbing. She said Lena felt betrayed and doesn't think she can be friends with me again. She accused me of making it all about my own hero complex instead of supporting her daughter's day. Mark hasn't reached out. His last text to me was, "Don't contact my fiancé again," and I never responded. In private, I feel torn. Part of me thinks I did the right thing. Someone needed to knock Mark off his pedestal and show Lena that his jokes weren't okay. But another part worries I overstepped. This was Lena's party, not mine. I hijacked the spotlight and humiliated both her and her fiancé in front of family. Tonight I'm hosting a small dinner for Lena's birthday. Her real birthday was yesterday. The guest list is her immediate family and our closest friends. I'm terrified. I debated not inviting myself. Maybe I should just drop off a cake and leave. But I promised Lena I'd throw her a nice dinner, and I want a chance to apologize. In person. So, Reddit. ATA for confronting Mark about his obedience comment at Lena's bridal shower. ATA for making it awkward for Lena on what was supposed to be a celebratory day. Should I still go to the birthday dinner? Or would that be too much? I love Lena like a sister, and I'd never intentionally hurt her. But Mark's comment really felt like the sum of many little jabs over the past months. I didn't mean to overshadow her shower, but I couldn't let that stand. Now I'm not sure if I'm a hero or a jerk. Edit. A few people have asked for clarity on tone. I didn't use swear words. I said wrong girl and force of nature, hoping to be firm but not vulgar. I was shaking when I spoke, and I didn't plan it. Words just came out. Update. 1 week later. Lena hasn't spoken to me. Dinner is in 2 days. I've considered backing out, but I'm afraid that leaving her alone with Mark will drive them further apart, or maybe it'll help them bond by painting me as the villain. I don't know what to do. Final question. Should I go to the birthday dinner and apologize in person, or should I respect her space and stay away? Thank you for reading. I really appreciate any honest feedback. I, 30F, have always been the responsible one in my group of friends, and I'm pretty proud of my reputation. I work in project management for a mid-sized tech firm. I pay my bills on time, and I'm known for never missing a deadline. But lately, that side of me has been the very thing fueling a toxic swirl of resentment, betrayal, and family drama. I'm not sure whether I'm the bad guy here, so I'm turning to you all, my fiancé, Derek, 32M, and I have been together for 6 years, and we're finally tying the knot this fall. We're both event planner type personalities, so we dove headfirst into planning a big, elaborate wedding. We've got about 180 guests, a rented historic mansion for the ceremony, a rooftop dinner under bistro lights, the whole 9 yards. We're both super excited about it, except for one person, my younger brother, Caleb, as 26M. Caleb and I have always butted heads. When we were kids, he was the class clown and always testing boundaries. I resented that Mom and Dad coddled him, but when I hit my teens, I finally got that my parents felt guilty after I was diagnosed with a chronic illness at 12. They saw me suffering, and I got the brunt of their worry, while he got away with a lot more. As adults, we developed a grudging respect, but it's always simmered under the surface. Cut to New Year's Eve of this year, we hosted a small family and friends party at our house, just 20 or so people. My best friend Samantha, 30F, who's helping me coordinate the wedding, set up a champagne tower. We did toasts, and everyone had a great time until midnight. That's when Caleb cornered me in the kitchen with a grin. "Hey, sis," he slurred a little, "about that wedding. Do you really need 180 people? Why not just elope, save the money, save yourself the stress? You're the type to plan every second of your life anyway." I laughed it off and said, "Because I want my friends and family there, man. Plus the house deposit is non-refundable." He waved his hand. "You're insane. You'll be up at 4 a.m., stressing over which napkin shade matches the place cards." I rolled my eyes, but inside I squirmed, because there was some truth to it. I love details. Fast forward 3 weeks. We sent save the dates in March, and RSVPs started rolling in. Everything looked great, until Derek comes into my office one afternoon holding his phone like it's a grenade. "Babe," he said, "why's your brother telling people he's officiating our wedding?" My heart stopped. I stared at his face. "What?" "He just texted my mom a selfie in a suit, calling himself Reverend C.L. Marshall, and he's posting on his Instagram stories, bringing the house down at my sister's big day." I snatched the phone and scrolled through Caleb's public story. A cheesy, official-looking certificate from what appears to be some random online ministry. A hastily printed ordination of Reverend Calvin Marshall. It literally had clip art of a dove, then a boomerang of him in a suit jacket, bow tie undone, pointing at the camera with the caption, "Stepping into my calling. As brother of the bride." I felt my face flush. He did not clear this with us. He offered to waive any fee, Derek muttered, which is funny because you're paying $3,000 to the actual church to use their chapel. I texted Caleb, "Hey, Why are you claiming to officiate our wedding? We never asked you to. I sat there waiting, and for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, no reply. On Instagram, the story had already been up for an hour. I decided to ignore him for a day, hoping he'd realize the prank was out of line and take it down. But the next morning, the invitation arrived on my doorstep. A fancy personal officiant proposal in calligraphy, complete with his call-to-service schedule, processional welcome vows, pronouncement, let's party, etc., and a rate sheet for his premium package, which listed schedule finalization for $500, custom blessing creation for $350, and marital therapy discount at buy one, get one half off. The header read, Minister Marshall's exclusively tailored celebrations. I could not believe it. I texted him again. Take this down, now. He responded, chill out. It's just a joke. You need to loosen up. No harm, no foul. Besides, I'm saving you money. This is where I think I might have overreacted. I posted on our wedding Facebook group, a closed group of about 150 guests, an official announcement. We have secured Reverend Karen Holt from St. Mark's Chapel to officiate our ceremony. Reverend Karen is a longtime friend of the family. We're thrilled she'll be joining us. I meant it to be celebratory, but the subtext was clear. Caleb blew up. He started posting passive-aggressive memes in the group. Cartoons of that awkward moment when your sister hires a stranger to do a brother's job, and tweets that read, family is overrated, with a crumpled wedding photo. Guest comments started pouring in, some asking, wait, is Caleb being serious? And others gently reminding him, it's your sister's day. I got private messages from my aunt. Your brother's really hurt. He thought this was his moment to shine. My mum texted me, honey, maybe we should have at least asked him to do a reading or something. I felt cornered, like I was caving to his drama. I called our parents that night. I said, I'm sorry, but I can't give him the officiant role. It's already booked. We love him, but he's overstepped. My dad sighed. He's your brother. Maybe you can give him the reading at the reception. I said, he already RSVP'd as officiant. If I let him down easy, he'll think it's okay to take liberties with our day. 2 nights later, I woke up to dozens of text messages, not from Caleb and from our mutual friends and cousins. They were furious with me. You're embarrassing him in front of everyone. You're making your brother look like an idiot. You're turning this into a spectacle. Some messages were supportive of me, but the angry ones stung. By this point, Derek is livid. He said, look, your family is starting to talk about a fight at the wedding. That's the worst thing that could happen. Please find a way to make peace. I tried. I texted Caleb. Let's sit down. Coffee this weekend? Let's talk this out. I don't want us fighting. He replied, I don't want to talk. You humiliated me. I spent the whole weekend obsessively refreshing my phone, hoping he would change his mind. On Sunday afternoon, I got a screenshot from a friend. Caleb posted a countdown sticker on his Instagram story. T90 days until Sis's big day. Can't wait to ruin it. Now I'm at my wit's end. I turned to my parents again and said, can you talk to him? This is ridiculous. My mom's response, I'll talk to him, but it won't end well. My dad, he's our son too. We can't force him into a role he doesn't want to play. I haven't spoken to Caleb in 2 weeks. He's blocked me on social media and won't pick up my calls. Meanwhile, I'm doing last-minute seating charts and vendor calls, and every time I think of him, my chest tightens with guilt and anger. I worry about an awkward confrontation at the ceremony, maybe even a scene, and part of me wonders if maybe I am the asshole here. So, Reddit, ATA for publicly announcing a real officiant to shut down my brother's prank. ATA for refusing to give my brother any formal role in my wedding after he turned it into a joke. ITA for not picking a minor consolation prize, reading toast usher, just to keep the peace. I understand he feels left out, but it's my wedding. He knew what he was doing when he printed that certificate and proposal. I tried to de-escalate, but he refused. If I cave now, doesn't that set a precedent? If I don't, am I valuing perfection over family? Am I the a-hole? Am I the a-hole for telling my sister she ruined her own wedding and it wasn't my fault? So for context, my sister, let's call her Emily, 29F, got married last month to her now husband, Jake, 32M. I, 26F, was her maid of honor. We were never super close growing up, but we had a decent relationship. I always looked up to her as the perfect one. Popular, smart, always praised by our parents. I was the weird, artsy younger sister, and I think she always saw me as a bit of an embarrassment or nuisance. But I tried to support her, especially through the wedding planning. Emily is frankly kind of a control freak. Everything for the wedding had to be perfect. Pinterest boards, mood lighting, dress fittings down to the last millimeter. Fine. It's her wedding. But this extended into controlling people too. She micromanaged the bridesmaids, dictated our hairstyles, makeup shades, shoes, nail color, you name it. I went along with it. I let her boss me around because I figured it was her day, and it wasn't worth fighting. Where things started getting weird was when she started being really cagey about her bachelorette party. She didn't want one, which is fine, but she made this big deal about nothing dramatic being allowed to happen around the wedding. She kept repeating that phrase like a mantra. Nothing dramatic, no surprises, no attention stealing. I thought she was being paranoid until I realized what was really going on. So here's where it gets complicated. A few years ago, Emily dated a guy named Ethan for 3 years. She was obsessed with him. Everyone thought they'd get married, but she cheated on him with Jake. Yep. Her now husband was the other man. She never really came clean about that to everyone, just said things didn't work out with Ethan, and that Jake was who she was meant to be with. But those of us close to her knew the truth. Anyway, here's where I come in. About a year ago, I randomly reconnected with Ethan at a mutual friends party. It had been years, and we just clicked. One thing led to another, and we started dating. Secretly. At first, I didn't even realize it would be a thing, but it turned into something real. He knew I was Emily's sister, obviously, but he said he was over her, and I believed him. I told him I didn't want to hide our relationship, but he said he didn't want to cause drama, and it would just make things worse. I agreed, maybe stupidly, and kept it under wraps. Fast forward to the wedding. Ethan and I had been together for almost 11 months at that point, and things were serious. I was getting really tired of hiding it. I told him I wanted to tell Emily after the wedding, just so we weren't sneaking around anymore. He hesitated, but agreed. Then came the rehearsal dinner. This is where the match got lit. Emily had invited Ethan to the wedding, no idea why, probably to gloat. She invited a lot of her exes, actually, like it was some kind of victory lap. She told me he RSVP'd yes and acted all smug about it. I freaked out a little, but Ethan said he hadn't RSVP'd at all. He thought it was weird, too. So, we came up with a plan. He'd come, but stay low-key, and we wouldn't out ourselves. Well, that didn't work. At the rehearsal dinner, my boyfriend was there, sitting with some mutual friends. Emily saw him and went weirdly quiet. Then, during the speeches, I guess one of our friends, who did know about us and had maybe had too much to drink, made a vague joke during a toast about me, finally catching feelings for someone who wasn't fictional, and winked at Ethan. The entire room kind of paused. Emily just stared at me. Afterward, she pulled me aside and asked if I was dating Ethan. I didn't want to lie. I told her the truth. Yes, we were together. Yes, it was serious. No, I hadn't told her, because I didn't want to ruin her wedding with drama. She just stared at me with this mixture of horror and rage and said, "You did this to sabotage me. You couldn't stand that I was finally happy." I tried to explain. I said it wasn't like that I didn't plan it, that we'd been careful not to make it about us. But she was done. She started crying and said I'd ruined her wedding, that I'd done the one thing she asked me not to do, bring drama. Then came the wedding day. She didn't replace me as maid of honor, probably too late to change things. But she barely looked at me. She wouldn't talk to me. She made me stand at the very edge during photos. She didn't let me give a speech. Her new husband gave me this smug look like he was enjoying the whole thing. The ceremony was tense. The reception was worse. At one point during the reception, a song came on that was one of Ethan and Emily's old songs. He and I were just sitting at the same table, not dancing or doing anything inappropriate. But she saw us sitting next to each other and lost it. She screamed at me in the middle of the dance floor, literally screamed, called me a backstabbing little snake, and demanded we leave. I was humiliated. I left in tears. Ethan followed me, and we ended up just going home. Here's where it gets messier. I posted a photo on Instagram a few days later, just me and Ethan at the wedding, smiling. Nothing romantic, no caption, just a photo. I thought maybe it's time to stop hiding. Well, all hell broke loose. Emily blocked me on everything. My mom called me sobbing, saying Emily felt violated and betrayed, and that she was spiraling on her honeymoon. Apparently she cried for 3 days and barely left the hotel. Our dad thinks Emily is being dramatic, but he still told me I should apologize, just to keep the peace. Then last week I got an email from Emily. Not a text, not a call. An email. She said she never wants to see me again, that I deliberately chose the one person who would hurt her the most, and that I made her wedding about myself. She said I ruined her day, and that everyone was talking about how awkward it was that Ethan was there. I was so angry I wrote back something I probably shouldn't have. I said, "You ruined your own wedding the moment you made it all about appearances. You cheated on Ethan and treated people like props, and now you're mad the real world didn't play along. Grow up." She hasn't responded since. Now half my family thinks I went too far. My mum says I should have let it go and kept things quiet until after the honeymoon. My cousin, who was also a bridesmaid, says she doesn't blame Emily for feeling betrayed. But some of my friends think Emily's just being a drama queen and couldn't handle not being the center of attention. So, am I the a-hole for dating her ex and then telling her she ruined her own wedding? Am I the a-hole for exposing my best friend's fake cancer battle at her own surprise birthday party? I, 29F, have known my best friend, Amber, 30F, since college. We bonded over late-night study sessions, cheap pizza, and our shared love of true crime podcasts. Over the years, we were inseparable. Road trips, job changes, heartbreaks. Amber was my person, and I was hers. Lately, though, Amber's behavior has been unsettling. It started about 9 months ago, when she told me she'd been diagnosed with an aggressive form of leukemia. She posted a photo in a hospital bed holding a pink mug, captioned, "Fighting hard." I was devastated. We spent nights on Zoom and weekends driving her to chemo. Her partner, Greg, 31M, flew back and forth supporting her in between work trips. Amber's Instagram lit up with messages, "Stay strong, warrior." "We love you, Amber." She sold pink bracelets to raise money for her medical bills and for the leukemia charity Blood of Hope, except none of it was true. The red flags, it took me a while to piece things together. But here's what bothered me. No scans or records. When I asked to see her latest blood work, she said it was too painful. Her doctors wouldn't share anything due to privacy laws, she insisted, yet she'd happily share selfies. Chemo without side effects. Chemo usually sucks. Hair, loss, nausea, fatigue. But Amber looked flawless every week. Perfect skin, styled hair, designer clothes. She claimed she was on a new clinical trial, but I never saw any hospital IDs or wristbands. Greg's timelines. He claimed he flew back on weekends for treatments, but his flights never matched the schedule he told me. Once I casually asked his airline for dates through an app that tracks flights, and the records didn't exist, financial inconsistencies. Amber raised nearly $8,000 via her fundraiser page. Every few weeks she posted updates thanking donors, yet she never had any follow-up about bills paid or treatment progress. When I privately messaged her about transferring some money directly to the hospital, she ghosted me for days, then replied, "All sorted, no need to worry." I started digging deeper, way deeper. I asked mutual friends, neighbors, even checked the public medical license lookup to see if I could find her oncologist. Nothing matched. Eventually, I confronted her after a Saturday lunch. "Amber, I know. This seems callous, but I need proof. Lab results, scan photos, something." Her face went white. She blurted, I can't go through it again. Please don't make me show it." I hugged her, but it felt hollow. The surprise party set up fast forward to last weekend. Amber's partner, Greg, hosted a huge surprise 30th birthday party for her at a friend's loft downtown. He'd invited nearly 50 people, college friends, co-workers, even some of Amber's fellow survivors from her online leukemia support group. I was one of the last to arrive. I went in through the back door to say hi to the host and help with the playlist. The lights were dim, candles flickering. A sign read, "Amber's Brave 30th." Guests clustered around a long table covered in pink decorations. There was a tiered cake shaped like a medical IV stand, balloons, and even a slideshow queued up, titled Amber's Journey, From Diagnosis to Survivorship. I felt a prickle of unease when I saw it. Just then, the host handed me a folder. "Here are Amber's photos and scans for the slideshow. Greg forgot to upload them." I flipped through the pages. The scans were just stock photos from a medical website, and the before and after hospital selfies were clearly from different women, not Amber. My heart pounded. Moments later, guests burst out, "Surprise!" As Amber walked in, wearing a beautiful pink gown and a tiara that read "Cancer Warrior," she looked overwhelmed, tears in her eyes, as everyone cheered and applauded the confrontation. The host dimmed the lights and cued the slideshow. Guests leaned in as opening slides displayed teddy bear chemo memes and quotes like, "Cancer picked the wrong girl." Then began the before hospital bed photos, none of which actually featured Amber. Someone handed Amber the microphone to give her survivor speech. My mind raced. I thought of every donation she'd solicited, every time I'd skipped work to sit with her in treatment, how my heart had broken watching her. I was furious. She'd weaponized our empathy. I stood up, cleared my throat, and said loud enough for the crowd, "Hey everyone, can we pause for a second? Before we start the slideshow, I have something important to share." Amber froze, her eyes on me. Gasps rippled through the room. I've supported Amber through her cancer treatment for nearly a year. I've driven her to chemo. I've cried at every scan update. I've given money, emotional labor, everything. Last week, I checked with her treatment center, and she's never been a patient there. Those scans, stock images, those selfies photoshopped. Her clinical trial, a complete lie. The room went silent. The projector flickered off. Amber's face drained of color. She stuttered, "Kate, please, this isn't the time." I held up the stack of screenshots I'd gathered, flight records showing Greg wasn't on any flights, screenshots of Amazon orders for pink mugs shipped to her address at odd intervals, and messages where Amber awkwardly confessed she was too embarrassed to show proof. "I'm so sorry to do this," I said, voice trembling, "but you've treated all of us like props in some twisted pity party. You lied, constantly. You raised thousands under false pretenses. How can we celebrate you when you've been faking it this whole time?" Amber's shoulders shook. She ran out of the loft, leaving guests staring at one another. 5 minutes later, Greg escorted her car away. The host called it a night. People drifted out, murmuring. Fallout since then. Amber has blocked me on social media and texted me through Greg. "I never want to see you again." Greg messaged me, "You ruined everything. I'm so sorry you got dragged into this, but that was my partner and you ambushed her." Some friends applaud me for exposing the scam. Others think I publicly shamed a friend who might be mentally ill. The leukemia charity has reached out to me, suspecting their brand was misused. They're investigating donations and Amber's fundraiser page. Amber's real-life co-worker emailed, "She's been on vacation for a month. We couldn't get hold of her. Now HR is asking questions." I feel awful for the way I confronted her, dragging a secret that might be tied to shame or mental health issues into a packed party. But I also feel like I had a responsibility to the people she deceived and to the charity whose name she abused. So Reddit, ATA, for publicly exposing Amber's fake cancer story at her own surprise birthday party. Heita for gathering evidence behind her back and ambushing her in front of everyone. Aita for potentially destroying her life when maybe she needs help, not humiliation. I'm torn between guilt for humiliating my best friend and outrage at her deceit. What would you have done? Am I the a-hole for crashing my ex-business partner's restaurant grand opening to expose them? I, 34F, used to run a small but thriving pop-up food stall in our city's night market with my best friend, Nate, 35M. We met 7 years ago in culinary school. I was a pastry chef, he was a line cook. And together we dreamed up a menu that combined my rich, layered desserts with his savory street food twists. Our sweet and savory stall drew lines every weekend, and within 2 years, we'd built up enough savings and reputation to talk about expanding into a brick and mortar. In early 2023, Nate and I started planning our joint restaurant. I drew up the business plan, scouted locations, and handled most of the investor pitches. Nate worked the stall non-stop, trained new hires, and perfected our menu. By November, we'd signed a lease on a tiny downtown space, agreed on our profit splits 50-50, and even secured a small bank loan under both our names. Then things went sideways. The disappearing act in December 2023, right after Christmas, I got a frantic text from Nate. "Emergency. Call me ASAP." When I did, he told me that our landlord had double-booked the space and we'd lost the location. I was furious. We'd both toured it together. He insisted it must have been a mistake, but 3 days later, the landlord confirmed the lease was now with someone else. I dug in. I contacted the broker, our lawyer, and even the other tenant, Baker's Block Cafe, owned by Nate's cousin, Darren. All of them dead-ended. It was like the agreement had vanished. Nate texted that he'd handle it, but I heard nothing more from him for 2 weeks. Meanwhile, I fielded emails from disappointed investors and worried apartment neighbors who'd put down deposits. At the end of January 2024, 4 weeks later, Nate finally called. His voice was guarded and awkward. "I've got good news. I found a location." He told me he'd signed a lease on a spot around the corner. He'd taken on the entire debt himself, he said, so I wouldn't have to worry about the loan. He assured me he'd cover my half of the rent for 6 months. And then he asked me to meet him there for a celebratory beer. I didn't like that he'd gone behind my back on the lease, but I was still desperate to see our dream become reality. I agreed. The grand opening invitation, in March, I got an official invite from Sweet and Savory Kitchen, with Nate's name and mine on the header. Except he'd shortened it to Savory Kitchen by Chef Nate, and removed my title as co-founder from the footer. The invite read, "You're cordially invited to the grand opening of Savory Kitchen by Chef Nate Thursday, April 10th. 7 p.m. 152 Maple Street, hosted by Darren Enterprises. There was no mention of me. No logo, nod to desserts, no sweet in the branding. My pastries were nowhere on the menu that Nate posted on Instagram. I reached out. Me. "Hey, got the invite." "Congratulations. Did you mean to remove our sweeten from the name?" Nate. "Hey, I wanted a more streamlined brand." "Hope that's okay." Me. "And the desserts, my macarons and tarts?" Nate. "I'm focusing on hot food right now. Might bring desserts back seasonally. See you at the opening?" Me. "Sure, I felt sick, but I decided I'd go. After all, we'd built this together. If nothing else, I wanted one last look at our shared dream." The night of the opening, I arrived at Savory Kitchen at 6:50 p.m. The blue neon sign glowed in the drizzle, and a ribbon-cutting arch had been erected. A small red carpet led up to 2 microphones. I slipped inside and recognized several familiar faces. Investors who'd backed our pop-up, some regular customers, even my sister and her husband. Nate was chatting nearby in a crisp white chef's coat with his new sous chef. I waited politely off to the side as Darren took the stage. He thanked everyone, praised Chef Nate for his unique vision, then handed the mic to Nate. Nate launched into a speech about fresh ingredients, community, and surprise, a sweet finale from our guest pastry chef Marissa, pointing right at me. My jaw dropped. The crowd cheered. I stepped up as Nate beamed. He introduced me as the creative half of our original concept, then turned to his sous chef, grinned, and said, "Let's give Marissa a round of applause for partnering on this venture." People clapped politely, some louder than others. My sister came over and said, "Congrats, you look great." I plastered on a smile, but I noticed something. The pastry case behind me was empty, and the menu handouts distributed at the door had no dessert section at all. My heart sank. I turned to Nate quietly. Me. "Wait, where are the pastries I made?" Nate. "Oh, we decided to go savory only for now." but I'll put your tarts on next week menu. Me. Nate. The invite promised a sweet finale. Where is it? Nate. Shrugs. Sorry, ran into some unexpected costs, we'll add it later. I realized he'd used my name to lend credibility, invited investors under my implied endorsement, but then cut me out entirely. The decision to speak up, I spent the next hour in a haze. People came by and congratulated Chef Nate and Marissa, but not about desserts. Everyone thought I was a guest star chef, not a co-owner. I snapped a few photos, made polite conversation, then headed to the entryway restroom to collect. Myself, I texted Darren, "Can we talk?" But his phone went straight to voicemail. I tried Nate. He ignored my texts. The ribbon-cutting table was now crowded with media photographers and food bloggers. An outdoor spotlight had turned on. I realized if I left quietly, I'd let him rewrite our entire partnership. So I headed back to the mic, waited for a lull, then tapped the stand until Nate and Darren noticed. Me, into the mic. "Excuse me. Everyone, can I have your attention?" For just a moment, a hush fell. Loan officers, food bloggers, neighbors all turned to me. Me. "Thank you. I'm Marissa Clark, and 7 years ago I co-founded Sweet and Savory with Nate. We poured our hearts into every recipe, every pop-up, and every investor pitch. Tonight, I was invited here under the clear understanding that our joint venture was opening this brick and mortar. A few gasps, people shifted on their feet. Me. Apparently, in the weeks before this opening, the lease was taken out solely under Nate's name, our desserts were cut from the menu, and our branding was changed without any discussion. My name has been used to advertise a restaurant that now excludes the very product I created. That's not a partnership, that's appropriation." I paused. Flashbulbs popped. I felt my cheeks burn. Me. "I love Nate as a friend and cook, but business is trust. I want to know who else here is under the impression this is a joint restaurant. If you are, I ask you to reconsider your support until this is corrected." Without waiting, I handed the mic back, turned on my heel, and walked out into the rain. Immediate fallout, Nate stormed outside after me, yelling, "You ruined everything! Now everyone thinks I'm a crook." I didn't stop. Investors cornered Darren, demanding clarity on the real ownership structure. Customers who'd queued for hours started muttering about a drama they weren't told about. Local food bloggers live-streamed. Sweet and Savory's partner just ghosted the party. Darren sent me a text. "Marissa, worth a call. Let's discuss." I spent the cab ride home replaying every step. Part of me felt vindicated. I'd exposed a betrayal in front of everyone who mattered. Another part felt sick at the spectacle I'd made of myself and the weekend Nate had poured his savings into. Where we stand now, 2 days later. Investors have paused Nate's line of credit pending a partnership review. Our mutual lawyer has asked me to draft an amendment outlining new, clear ownership terms if I want back in. Nate emailed a terse apology, but also a demand that I retract the public statement or face legal action. Customers are divided. Some laud me for standing up for fair business. Others post comments like, "What a diva, pathetic publicity stunt." My sister calls me daily, worried I've burned bridges in the foodie community. My mother texted, "Did you go too far? You embarrassed Nate." My father replied, "You did what you had to do. Don't apologize." So, Reddit, AITA 4. Publicly exposing Nate's appropriation of our joint venture at his grand opening. AITA for hijacking his big moment rather than handling it privately through lawyers. FITA for risking his reputation and mine when I could have pursued an out-of-court settlement. I know partnerships are supposed to thrive on communication, but after months of radio silence and broken promises, I felt I had no other choice. I am proud of my work, but ashamed of the scene I caused. Was there a better way? Did I cross a line? Thank you for reading. I appreciate honest feedback.